Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, March 21st, 2016.
Commissioner Davis, Rodriguez, James, Repenning, and Jacinto are present. President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning. Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning. Gary Harris, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning. Mark Shin, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning. Julie Allen, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning. Chris Smith, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning. Lori Rittenberg, City Attorney.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we received public comment cards for today, and we also received comment cards or speaker cards for items 1 through 4 in today's agenda.
Okay, let's go ahead and approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of, find my notes, Friday, March 4th, 2016. Is there a second to my motion? By Commissioner Rodriguez. Any objection? Without objection, we'll approve those meeting minutes. Let's start with supplemental agenda item number 5. Bureau of Engineering, Bureau of Contract Administration from Council District 9, recommending that the board execute a sole source contract with Populous Incorporated for architectural and engineering and design services during construction for the Los Angeles Convention Center expansion and renovation project with a budget authority of $33,537,590 for 7 years, and authorize the city engineer to issue a notice to proceed for the concept refinement phase of the contract for an amount not to exceed $1,700,000. This was continued from Friday. Mr. Kawaguchi. Mr. Herman, are you putting in a card on this item? Pardon me? Are you putting in a card on this item? Yeah. Go ahead, sir. Yes, you're up on item 5, Mr. Herman.
Oh, great. In the past, there's been some architectural barriers regarding the expansion near the complexity of the convention center. That has to do with programmatic access for members of the public, meaning constituents, who provide the provisions of monies along with the state and federal government to access the area. If certain provisions are provided for design and design services, shouldn't that also fall under the American Disability Act, where the design implements ideas that constitute a right for persons who have disabilities to be incorporated in design and services? So I found that anywhere near the Los Angeles Convention Center, there are many issues of programmatic access. It deals with engineering services, lighting services, and the way the functions of this recommendation by architectural design and services surround the convention center. So in the past, I know Mr. Wayne Spindler spoke greatly about the convention center, how poorly they moderate on behalf of the public. And I feel the same way, that there is such harm when such a large amount of money is applied to a situation for 7 years without any type of quarterly posted structure to this. Because without anyone knowing the benefit of the project money being spent in 7 years, it's actually going to create a problem of a lost idea to what the refinement phase of this contract will amount to.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Kawaguchi on supplemental 5.
Good morning, Commissioners, Bureau Heads, City Attorney, and Mr. Campos. My name is Alan Kawaguchi. I'm with the Bureau of Engineering. I'm the project manager for the Convention Center Expansion Renovation Project. I also have joined with me Ms. Natalie Brill from the CAO's office, in case you have any questions on the financial issues to this contract. As you said, it's a sole source contract with Populous Incorporated for $33.5 million for a time of 7 years. And on March 2nd of 2016, the council actually delegate its authority to this board to execute this contract as a sole source. The mayor also concurred with it on the 14th. In addition to when they made the delegation down to the board, they also stipulated that $1.7 million be spent towards, and that's included already in the 33.5, for the concept refinement of the project. And the reason because of that is they also, at the time, decided to go with what they call a dual path. Going with Populous is a typical system of design, and then we'll go to construction. The dual path, the other path, is what we call the private-public partnership, and the CAO is overseeing that branch of it. We're to report back within 90 days on what the refinement will do, as well as how the P3 will finance the project or move forward with it. To give you some background, this process of selecting the architect started almost 2 years ago, back on June of 2014. The Bureau reached out to its on-call contract list. 11 firms applied in, and they were told that if they didn't have the specialty of expanding convention centers, that they needed to get a firm on board. If that firm is their specialty firm, then they will be selected as their prime. 6 firms were shortlisted from the 11. Of the 6, 3 firms were interviewed. Those firms were A.C. Martin with Alan Mayer Architect, HMC Architect with Populous Incorporated, Gensler Associates with Layer Architects. These 3 firms were given a design competition back in February of 2015. And in June 2015, the selection panel made up of the Bureau of Engineering and the Convention Center staff selected Populous Incorporated as the highest rated firm. They recommended that firm to the council. On June 30th, the council instructed the Bureau of Engineering to begin negotiations on the contract. Populous Incorporated has pledged a following of MBE of 19.4%, WBE of 4.32%, SBE of 21.98%, an EBE of 21.98%, a DVBE of 3.0%, an OBE of 35.55%, and an LBE of 9.56%. Is there any questions you might have?
Alan, just I thought you might go there a little more specifically on the public-private partnership as proposed by the CAO's office. What we're doing today doesn't in any way step in front of that, does it, or does it?
It doesn't. One of the things that was brought out was by doing the concept refinement, it'll give us a better idea, because when we're finished with our product, it will label each of the rooms, the number, the size, the finishes, and everything that has that. So even if the city embarks on a P3 or private partner, we will give them our refinement so that they can incorporate that in their designs. So I think it's money that is not really. It's going to be usable with whichever direction they go.
Once we get beyond the concept refinement phase into additional phases, does the Bureau then come back? Because I see that it's authorization to issue a notice to proceed on the $1.7 million for that. Does the Bureau then come back to the board for what would be the next step of the process?
Yes, at that point, when we're finished with the concept refinement, we're going to go report back to council. At that point, the council will give us direction as to how to proceed, either to proceed with parts of the contract or to, at that point, end what we're doing, or maybe only pieces. So we'll come back to the Board of Public Works for authorization on that either way.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Anybody else?
Alan, I just want to say thank you, because I was going to ask you kind of to break it down in more detail, and I think you did an excellent job in kind of giving the explanation as to how we got here, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So is there a motion on agenda supplemental 5? I'll make it, along with Commissioner Rodriguez. Is there a second? By Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt supplemental 5. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send supplemental 5 forthwith. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 1 on the regular agenda, Bureau of Engineering, Council District 15, recommending the board authorize $200,000 in additional contingency and approve a revised construction budget of $6,440,869 and issue change order number 1 to J.F. Shea Construction for potential El Nino impacts for the Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant Tertiary Filter Rehabilitation Project. Mr. Herman, you have a card on number 1?
Whoa, is this how the city compensates a contractor for delays? Should anyone be compensated for a delay when it comes to rehabilitation projects, especially when they're a year old? This one started in May 5th of 2015, this recommendation to authorize a $200,000 for a contingency and approve a revised construction budget. But the issue shouldn't be whether or not a contractor should be paid or compensated for his delays, but rather we should think about the 16 territory filters that should be completed and accomplished for the purpose of the public. Because everything revolves around money, and money revolves around the people, the taxpayers. And so no contractor or any person or entity, including this one in particular, as to consultants and firms, should be in the agreement to follow the contract, the purchase order, that the city contractor and any other subcontractor who participate in such a service for provisions of goods and service should go by what the contract states in a timely manner, without delay, and with such purpose to not cause contingency for overlapping money. I look at it as money being wasted and money being abused. So such format and ability is that you need to provide a standard to go by how money is allocated for the purpose of the job, and that money specifically is going to complete that job, not call for more added spending on such projects. So just as a reminder, let us not go over the compensation of what we owe
2
for
minutes.
delays.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Eddie Ahani? Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Eddie Ohanian from Bureau of Engineering, Environmental Engineering Division. This is for Terminal Island Water Reclamation Facility. This project is going to rehab the filters at the Terminal Island facility. These are the tertiary filters that they treat the secondary effluent and prepare them for the tertiary process that goes through the advanced water reclamation process. Back in December, Bureau of Sanitation has requested to modify the project planning of constructing this project from 2 phases to 4 phases in anticipation of heavy rain and extreme weathers this year. This project was going to be constructed in 2 phases, that means 8 filters at a time. They wanted to release originally 8 filters to the contractor. However, this will reduce the plant flow to 50%, and they made an operational decision in protecting the operation of the plant. They had to retain 3/4 or 75% of the plant operation, therefore only releasing 25% or 4 of the filters to the plant, to the contractor for rehab. When this was necessary, we had to order the contractor to prepare additional piping and valving to modify the operation so they can only take 4 filters from service. And this is approximately a 50-foot of 30-inch piping, multiples of valves of 30-inch, and pipe supports and valve supports. They needed to cut through the pipes, make the modification to the piping in order for this to happen. This is a change order, going to be a change order. We're requesting to increase the contingency of the project by $200,000. However, $90,000 of this will be just parts and piping and valve and equipment procurement. $50,000 of that is going to be labor, and the remaining will be extending the construction cost because contractor has to stay on site and they have overhead to pay for this additional work. Good thing about this project is that in the future, if the plant has to have only 4 filters to be taken out for rehab, now they have the capability without reducing the plant operation down to 50%. This $200,000 we're requesting today is only for not to exceed amount of $200,000, yet the construction manager is still working to reduce this amount, and hopefully it's going to be done much less than $200,000.
Any questions regarding agenda item number 1? Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you, President James. Ed, thank you for your report. So because of the change in scope of work requested by Bureau of Sanitation, we are taking from 16, we're at 8, which is 2 phases. We're taking it down to 4 at 4. So we're increasing the number of phases in order to provide the capacity flow that we need. And based on this change in the scope of work and the increasing of the phases, we have additional costs in terms of the additional work that's going to be done, the piping, as well as the timing, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further on agenda item number 1? Commissioner Jacinto has made a motion that we adopt agenda item 1, seconded by Commissioner Rodriguez. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 1. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 1 forthwith. Mr. Ohanian, I think you are here on agenda item number 2. Bureau of Engineering recommending, for Council District 13, recommending the board authorize $100,000 in additional contingency and approve a revised construction budget of $3,745,118 and issue a change order to PPC Construction for potential El Nino impacts for the Los Angeles-Glendale Water Reclamation Plant tertiary filter replacement project. Mr. Herman, you have a card on number 2.
We're looking at acts of deliberation and ignorance here. Because on the first item that we spoke about earlier, we were talking about 16 filters. Now we're down to 4 filters for additional contingency within El Nino impacts for the Los Angeles Glendale Water Reclamation Plant. What is the issue here with sequencing of work? Why do change orders have to be changed? Why can't we develop a standard of knowing the actual amount it's going to cost the taxpayers, the ratepayers, those of us who live in these areas impacted by the so-called rehabilitation projects? This one in particular started in July 24 of 2013. You can see a measurable amount of money now allocated for this project, totally different from item number 1, old business of the agenda. But as you can see, as long as there's contingencies, we're going to see constant changes of sequencing of work. So who's to be accountable? The contractor or the city? When it comes to acts of deliberation, of ignorance for the truth and the facts on this contract or any contract. Because any contract shall comply with all city policies, should comply with all city regulations, and should be applicable to the contract for the understanding of how the city regulates a check and balance of how these contractors are figuring out the amounts of their contingency to add on. Once again, let us not become the douchebags of Herb Wesson's ignorance, or stealing from the public, deliberately taking from the public, and misusing public funds for projects that should be under a contract.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Ohanian on number 2.
Eddie Ohanian again from Bureau of Engineering, Environmental Engineering Division. This project, Los Angeles Glendale Water Reclamation Facility, a tertiary filter installation.
Sounds similar to agenda item number 1.
Correct. The difference is that the current filters at the Glendale has served its life expectancy and they needed to be removed. And the City of Los Angeles and Bureau of Sanitation made a decision to reuse the filters that they currently have in a water reclamation plant at DC Tillman and to relocate them and install them at Glendale Water Plant. This is a net savings of more than $1 million just in procurement cost. These filters, the contractor has removed them from service from DCT Tillman, and they moved them to Los Angeles Glendale plant. These filters are installed, and they also brought in 3 very large pumps that goes with this operation. Contractor has finished the work as of December. However, again, in anticipation of the wet weather this year, they have requested that delayed the demolition of the existing sand filters until end of the rainy season, which is April 1st. Contractor is going to demo out these filters. However, they had to demobilize from the site. Their project was complete, and they're going to remobilize. And this 3 filters is going to take about 2 months for them to completely take them off the surface and repave the area and leave. So this was necessary again to accommodate plant operations during the rainy weather. So we're asking for $100,000, not to exceed amount of $100,000. Again, this entire $100,000 is not going to be spent. It will be negotiated at the end of the contract with the contractor.
Any questions? Commissioner Davis?
We currently have an existing contingency of somewhere around, we have an existing contingency of somewhere around $400,000, correct, on this project?
Yes, that's correct.
In that contingency, is there not enough funding in that existing contingency to accommodate the change of plans that we have to implement in the project? I do realize that by using or reusing the filters, we are able to make a great savings. But in terms of budgeting, I was just curious about the existing contingency and if, in fact, it would accommodate the action that we did put in our new plans here.
You're correct, Commissioner. There is 5% contingency to this contract, $450,000. However, throughout the construction, there was $26 million, 26 change orders, minor change orders, totaling of $290,000 have been spent. And there is still remaining left in the contingency. However, at the time when this took place, we weren't sure exactly how the contract is going to finish, and a lot of change orders were still open and contract. When we do rehabilitation work, there is a lot of unforeseen conditions. Again, we haven't finished demolishing those filters. They contain contaminated sand and anthracite in those filters. They have to go through the lead abatement of the painted surfaces of those steel tanks, and they have to cut and remove all the way 5 foot deep into the ground. So there are still some unforeseen conditions, and we intend to keep that about $150,000 that we have in the contingency. Therefore, we ask for additional $100 just in case anything associated with this delay of the construction work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Cinto?
Thank you. Eddie, just to go back to the request deals with the additional time or the delay, the request to demobilize or to extend it so that we can keep it online, but then the demobilization and remobilization, so those costs are allowable in the contracts, correct?
Yes, the contractor is allowed to ask for demobilizing and again remobilizing back to the site, and this is additional work for them. And this amount of time that the contractor work is delayed They have overhead costs. They have rental equipment on site, and they have a supervisor and a manager on site, and they have to retain everybody until the project is finished. So there will be mobilization and remobilization. However, there's overhead cost to any contractor. So contractors want to finish their work and leave as soon as they can. However, we ask them to stay around another 3 months.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Cento. Anything further on number 2? Is there a motion on number 2 by Commissioner Cento? I'll second it along with Commissioner Rodriguez. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 2. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 2 forthwith. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Let's go to agenda item number 4, Council District 6, specifications submitted for the board adoption and authorization to advertise for the invitation of bids. Mr. Herman, you have a card on number 4.
Well, when it comes to bids and the authorization to advertise for such bids, we know that such circulation should be posted in variable places, not only in just our internets or our newspapers, but in local areas where such conditions of specifications of work are going to be addressed. Particularly, this one's talking about CD6. That's Miss Nuri, the grand jury, who will eventually be indicted for her acts of crime of public waste and abuse. But regardless, Ms. Nuri jury, grande jury Nuri, we need these bids in order to actually have traffic control systems that really work. Matter of fact, Friday we had the Persians here who have a number of great engineers in their service who can maybe one day make our traffic flow actually work. I know the city of Los Angeles has been backlogged in their access for mobility here. And so with the bids and that probability going towards those who are Persian, who will win such a bid, then maybe we can look forward to a adaptive traffic control that system that really works for us. And without prejudice, those of us who are disabled or those of us who fall under a category of not operating a vehicle will have such a traffic control system that adequately performs on our behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Executive Officer, we should probably, if you look, the agenda item says Council District 6, but when you look at the supporting documentation, it references Council Districts 1 and 14. I believe it's Council Districts 1 and 14, and the mistake might be in the agenda item.
That is correct.
So
CD
in that
1
case,
and
we
14.
don't need, we can adopt agenda item number 4. We don't need to amend it because of what the supporting documents are.
That is correct.
Okay.
And we'll make sure to post the journal correctly.
Yeah. So is there a second to my motion that we adopt agenda item number 4 forthwith by Commissioners Rodriguez and Davis? Any objection? Without objection, we will do so. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, Office of Accounting and Bureau of Sanitation requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure to pay State Water Resources Control Board for annual waste discharge requirements and stormwater permit fees for several Los Angeles sanitation landfill sites, including Sheldon Arleta Landfill, Bishop Canyon Landfill, Gaffey Street Landfill, Lopez Canyon Landfill, and Toyon Landfill. The amount is $80,644 in total. Mr. Herman, you have a card on number 3.
Just a grim reminder about landfills is that just this past Friday there was a group of individuals having their possessions removed from the sidewalks off of Aliso in Los Angeles. And likely that landfill will have some of their personal belongings added to that landfill. But this is talking about the expenditures to pay for water resource control by the Board of Annual Waste Discharge. Well, we all know what a discharge is because what we take in has to come out. And it's the same as what Herb Wesson and some elected officials take in and discharge out, which is waste. Annual waste. Such expenditures to pay from the city, local government monies for a discharge should be feasible for everyone. But why is the Office of the Accounting and Bureau of Sanitation requesting the board's approval? Don't they know how to check and balance what is payable for waste discharge requirements and stormwater permit fees? So on behalf of those in Los Angeles, my topic of such requirements on storm permit fees, maybe there should be a permit fee that allows the public to pay less fees when they go discharge their waste in landfills anywhere in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. On number 3, Rosalia Rojo.
Good morning, President of the Board, board members. I'm representing the Bureau of Sanitation, Solid Resources Processing and Construction Division. The fees that are requested for approval as an AE, as mentioned before, is for waste discharges, water discharges from our landfills. These are annual fees. And just to give you an idea, last year our fees were about $96,000. This year is less, and the reason is primarily that we requested the board to reassess the threats from our landfills, and they concur by reducing some of these fees.
Thank you, Ms. Rojo. That's helpful. Any questions for Ms. Rojo regarding number 3? I don't have any questions. Is there a second to my motion that we adopt agenda item number 3 by Commissioner Repenning? Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 3 forthwith. Thank you, ma'am. Other than public comment, Mr. Campos, have we cleared the desk?
Yes, you have.
Okay, general public comment. Mr. Herman, you have a card.
It's a real shame when you see people's possessions being removed from a public sidewalk by local entities as Public Works, Sanitation, and our law enforcement. Fuck the police! Because individuals with disabilities are a discrete and insular minority who have been faced with restrictions and limitations, subjected to a history of purposeful, unequal treatment on our fucking sidewalks and streets, and regulated to a position of political powerlessness when you take their fucking shit off the sidewalk and streets, off of Aliso in Los Angeles, in our society today. Based on characteristics that are beyond the control of such individuals who are homeless and resulting from the ability to participate and contribute to our society due to their financial, social, economic fiasco, disaster. Why do you take their possessions off the sidewalk and streets? When the city of Los Angeles has certain millions of dollars to allocate for African Americans against the poverty pimps of Los Angeles who take their possessions off the streets. Find them homes, find them placement, find them resources for jobs and medical treatment and health care. Then you can say, fuck the police, fuck Public Works, and fuck all of those who took those people's possessions off the streets on Friday, as I indicated, for public record. It's offensive. Stop harming homeless people. Stop being callous to the issue like those 14 fucking members of our council who do take the unconstitutional right of a person for living on a sidewalk and street, calling it unconstitutional, and bringing in people to say that out in San Pedro that homeless people are offensive. No, you're fucking offensive.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Spindler, there's a card in for you on general public comment. Mr. Spindler? Mr. Spindler's not here. Mr. Campos, we cleared the desk?
Yes, you have.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.